What's up, everyone? I'm Sophia Pasternak, an award-winning author and mental health professional, and this channel is all about the intersection where writing meets psychology. I also post stuff about my author journey, baking bread, and outdoorsy stuff. If you're new here, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when I post a new video. So today's character therapy is about negativity and pessimism, and the characters with this schema think that everything is the worst, and the worst is always on its way. So they see the world through these dark colored glasses, and they always assume the worst and minimize when good things do happen to them. It's a mistake. That good thing that happened was an accident, and it's never going to happen again, and that's not typical. I never win anything, like that kind of thing. Those with the negativity and pessimism schema are constantly fearful of making catastrophic mistakes that will result in ruin of some kind, financial ruin, social ruin, losing all of their friends and family to abandonment, or anything else that is the absolute worst. It is a catastrophe, and they default to being anxious about impending disaster and will ruminate about things. So they'll just sit there and think terrible thoughts about hypothetical bad events that are around every single corner. So this schema might begin in childhood if your character's parents or other attachment figures are profoundly depressed or negative themselves. This can also happen if your character experiences actual tragedy, hardship, or loss as a child. If your childhood is defined by terrible things happening, your brain will get into that expectation of another terrible thing is going to happen because that's what happens. If you watch my character therapy overviews video right here, you will be familiar with the overcompensators, the avoiders, and the surrenderers. So the overcompensators believe that the opposite of the schema is true. In this particular schema, they will act unrealistically positive, like they're Pollyannas, and they deny any reality that is unpleasant. They're kind of in denial about it. So no, everything isn't terrible. Everything is fantastic, which, that's not the case all the time. And so they're setting themselves up for failure. The avoiders believe that the schema does not exist. They behave as though the schema does not exist. And they keep their expectations at rock bottom, because if you have no expectations for anything good happening, you can't be disappointed. The avoiders can also use substances to block out negative feelings. So these are the people who drink too much because they're trying to numb that anxiety that they feel about terrible things happening. Substances are not the only way to block out negative feelings. You can also do that with being addicted to video games or something like that. Just anything that takes you out of real life and puts you in this kind of safe place where you don't have to face your real feelings. And the characters who surrender to the schema is true, everything is the worst, a catastrophe is right there. So they will minimize positive events and they will emphasize negative ones. They expect and prepare for the worst. They avoid possible negative outcomes by any means necessary. So that kind of sounds like the avoiders, right? They're avoiding negative things that are happening. But if you're avoiding negative events by any means necessary, that means that you have accepted that they are going to happen. And if you're like an avoider response to the schema, then that means that you act like it doesn't exist. So that's kind of the difference right there. Now we're going to talk about the lie, the want, the truth, and the wound. So the lie is the schema. What is your character's fundamental incorrect belief about themselves, the world, or those around them? And people with this schema think, when things are going well, I know it's only temporary. One wrong decision could lead me to absolute disaster. I assume the worst, so I won't be disappointed when things inevitably turn to crap. And you can't be too careful. So the want is what your character thinks they need to be happy. And in this case, it would be protection from the terrible things that are going to happen to me. But that's not a great way to face the world. So what is the truth? The truth is what they actually need to be happy. And in this case, it's to understand that the world isn't horrible. And even though bad things happen, so do good things. And you're not destined to always, have catastrophe looming over you. And then the wound is optional, but I like to have it, and it's what caused this belief in the first place. Okay, so grab your piece of paper, get your Word document, etc. and so forth, the thing that you're using to write all of the notes down for this. So write down your character's relationship with the lie. And I gave some examples up back there a minute or two ago about what a character could be thinking specifically as far as negativity and pessimism goes, because some of them will think like, at any moment my house could catch on fire and I would be homeless. Or it could be on the inside, they think this terrible thing is going to happen, but I'm an overcompensator, so I'm acting like the opposite of schema is true. So, you know what? Nothing's ever going to happen. Life is great and things are beautiful. And so depending on your character's response technique and, just kind of their individual life, come up with what their actual lie is. What is that statement that they say to themselves? What is the thing that colors their whole world with negativity and pessimism? And then I want you to write down a list of things that could happen to reinforce this lie. So if they are kind of the traditional surrendering to this schema, that would be that something bad really does happen. And they are kind of left high and dry. They're afraid that their spouse is going to divorce them, and they do, and they take all the money and the dog and the car and everything, and everything is the worst. So what could kind of shore up and reinforce that character's schema of everything is the worst? And then what could happen to challenge that lie? So they go out on a limb for something and the worst doesn't happen, or they are expecting this terrible thing to happen and actually something good happens. So make a list of all of those things. And now save your list. Don't delete it. Don't erase it. And pull that list back out when you are in the middle of your second draft and you are kind of struggling with what kind of back and forth and fun and games can my character have. So pull this out and kind of incorporate one of these scenarios into a scene. And maybe you won't keep the scene, but you're still kind of working through your character's arc and you're still working through their process. And it could really help you write a scene that you do end up keeping. Also, I really like to use this technique when I am revising and I need to cut something. And so I will cut the scenes that nothing happens related to the lie or the want or the truth. Because if you're writing a scene that has nothing to do with your character's development, like, why is it there? Why do you have it in your book? What's the point of this? Why am I, as the reader, using up my eyeball energy in, getting this in my brain when it's ultimately not going to mean anything? So every scene you have, every chapter should relate to this lie. It should reinforce or it should challenge their lie. And if it's not doing either of those things, get it out of here. That is all for the negativity and pessimism schema, or the belief by your character that, you know what, everything's the worst. I am Eeyore and everything is the worst, and rain clouds everywhere. So these characters can be kind of hard to write and make them, I guess, enjoyable to read or sympathetic, because they're kind of just pathetic sometimes. You have to be careful not to make them pathetic. You need to make them empathetic. You make your readers empathize with them. But also not make it like too traumatic. We don't want trauma porn here, but you also just don't want a character that's sad for no reason. So they have to have something going on. So that's it. That's all. I'm done. And wash your hands. Black Lives Matter. Have a nice day.